Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. This is a shot that Kristina's always wanted, which is our dog cam, which has been taken out. So, but I do want to say thank you to everybody out there coming out. I know today's a special day for all those fathers out there and those celebrating with their fathers. So I appreciate you taking time to come out here and visit us. And if you don't know, I'm Eddie, Kristina's husband. I will be taking care of the live stream this week as Kristina is in Utah. As if you've seen her community page, you've seen her. So she's out there going over her channel and going over a class. So it hopefully will help her out. We did get one special gift this week. And if anybody knows, not telling you what's in here, but and I haven't yet opened it for the sole fact that it is Kristina's job to open it. So we're excited. We're excited to have her back tonight. Come back. So, anyways, to have two special guests, and I'm just going to moderate in between. And guys, just a little house cleaning. If you do have a question, please make sure to put question in front of your question so that we can see it. I am running the stream today all by myself. So I don't have any help here. So I'm going to be looking for those questions. And if those questions are out there, please make sure to put questions in front of it so that I can. But today we do have two special guests. One is a guest that we've had on before, Ian from Austin. He will be here to go over to help us out and answer your questions. But we also have Sarah. Sarah has been in the Gainesville market out in Gainesville, Georgia, and she will also be joining us. So this week it's a little bit special because we have two people, two special people. So we'll bring them in now. Good afternoon, Ian. Happy Father's Day weekend. Hello, Sarah.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
So I appreciate you guys coming. And if you guys want to go over yourselves a little bit, I will. I would love to hear about you and a little bit about your market. And I'm sure our subscribers and the viewers would love to hear about you. So Sarah, I'm going to give it to you first, and then Ian, I will hand it to you.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I am in Gainesville, Georgia, which is about an hour north of Atlanta. So I kind of serve the North Metro Atlanta area, and we have, a ton of people relocating from California and Florida. And just like everyone, throughout the country in most markets, it's very incredibly competitive here right now. It just makes it really tough in the real estate market, but we're making it through.
How is the market in Gainesville? I know it's very competitive at this point in time. And has it slowed down at all, or are we still seeing 10, 15 offers, or how did you guys handle that?
Yeah. So in the areas that I serve in kind of like the North Metro Atlanta area, we are still seeing some very, competitive pockets, for the most part, still holding very, very strong. All the great houses are still getting, 15, 20, sometimes even 30 offers, which is still nuts. The best thing is, though, that we are starting to see, increases in inventory, which is helping out a little bit, but demand is still incredibly strong. I like to kind of tell everyone and educate them that our days on our inventory market is a little bit like less than 1 month supply of inventory in most places. Wow. Still in kind of like that 2 to 3 week supply of inventory. And typically we're hovering, somewhere around 3 to 6 months supply of inventory in a normal market. So that just kind of helps give people a perspective of how competitive things are.
Wow. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Ian, before we get to you, I do have, there is one question in here that our moderator, Boyle Nuts, sent. And that question is Star Wars or Star Trek? And he knows exactly where I stand. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to you guys.
That's a Sarah question first.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So this is probably going to get tons of hate. I've never seen either.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Which one has like the little baby Jedi? The little
baby Yoda Goguru? that is Star Wars.
Okay. So he's cute, so I'll go with that one.
Fair enough. Ian?
Yeah.
If you know his name, Eddie, then I know which one you're a fan of, right? I'm going to show you something. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this?
No.
No? Okay. Anyway, it's a watch from Star Trek. I have a listing video that's coming up where I dressed up as a Star Trek character. Like a weirdo. So I actually really like both a lot. So I'm not going to choose sides.
But you got to pick one.
No, I'm not going to do it.
You got to pick one because our house, and I will tell you, the Smallhorn house is extremely divided in this. So
really,
I am a Star Wars fan. I am a Star Wars nut. And my girls have become Star Wars fans. My wife is a Trekkie.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is there's such a large universe, right, between both of them. So I'm gonna, just to help further divide, I'm gonna say Star Trek just for the show.
Fair enough.
You have it on your watch, so I think.
Yeah, and I had it on my watch at the time.
Yeah.
So
you have to. That's like saying, I mean, geez, you basically called me out and said, well, if you know his name, it's it. So if you have a watch, Ian, you are a fan.
I am a fan. I like them both.
So Ian, tell us a little bit about you. Straight out of Austin, Texas, one of the hottest markets in the country.
Yeah, no, nobody's moving here. I think what's interesting is there are a lot of people moving from everywhere to everywhere because of the last couple of years, people reevaluating their lives, saying, "Did you freeze? Did I freeze?
You're good.
I froze.
You froze for a second.
People reevaluating their lives, their space and their jobs and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very interesting time, especially in the Austin, Texas market. I've been a realtor here for a few years, and I've never seen anything like it. And I'm excited, but also a little worried. I'll save a lot of that conversation for the stream.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, so the way, guys, the way we're going to do it, like I said, is, if you have questions, put question in front of your questions and we will answer them. I'm going to throw it to the professionals here. I am not the professional. So I am only going to professionally moderate today. So with that, we do have a couple questions that have come in. And so I'm going to give it to you guys before we go into an article that one of our subscribers sent over to Kristina this week to go over, which I think is pretty important. So we'll hit some of the questions first. We'll go through the article. I'll ask you guys your feelings on it. And then we'll go back to questions. How about that?
Sounds good.
It's great.
Okay. So the first question comes from Debbie Brady. As the market is already crazy, how does a new home buyer ever break in? Which is a very good question. So I will go, Sarah.
Yeah, this is tough. So I like to have like a really in-depth conversation with my clients to find out their financial affordability or ability to buy a home right now. And in my market, in order to be very competitive, you are having to, have enough cash on hand to kind of cover an appraisal gap a lot of times. And if my client's in a position where they can't do that, then it's really a coaching conversation of let's go back and look at houses that have been on the market for more than a week. And that stat sounds crazy, but here right now, if the home's not selling within the first week, either it's slightly overpriced or maybe it just needs some cosmetic updating. And that's a real big opportunity for buyers to really kind of gain instant equity in a home if they can kind of see past the cosmetic updates that need to be done into a home. So kind of depends on the client's financial situation and the cash on hand that they have. But a lot of times that's kind of going back and looking at houses that have been on the market for a while and seeing if we can kind of look through some of the problems that they have and overcome those and focus on those and able to kind of break into the market if cash is a little bit tight.
Awesome. Ian.
Yeah, I echo everything that Sarah said. I think adding to that could be there are opportunities out there if you look and you're not stuck on things that don't actually add value to the house. For example, white cabinets, who cares, right? Like you can paint those later. It's not a big deal. Just because it's not your dream cabinets doesn't mean you shouldn't go for that house, and that could cause a house to sit a little longer. There are things you can be creative with it. Seller financing. Sometimes there are properties like that. Or here's one of my favorites. If the pictures are horrible, and I really don't like it if the pictures are really bad, like if somebody didn't take the time to get nice pictures, but you'll find that like if you just look through the houses, the ones with the worst pictures often sit longer. So just pay attention to that kind of stuff. And it's interesting. So I've
I
had
think
luck.
another thing that I would add is that you need to make sure that you are paired with the right agent that can handle the market.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times for some of my clients, it requires finding homes that are not on the market yet. And so that is door knocking a neighborhood, calling homeowners in a neighborhood, getting really creative to find those opportunities. Because if you can find something off market and you're not having to compete with multiple offers, that is a dream for a buyer. But you've got to have an agent that's experienced and that's willing to do that hard work and kind of go the extra mile. And, agents are a little bit of a dime of a dozen. So you've got to, find a really great one.
Agree. And let me ask you this, and that actually brings up a good point. One that you brought up, Sarah, and Ian, right beforehand. Are you guys seeing that when an agent has a house listed, are you seeing that maybe agents aren't putting the effort that they used to put in within, let's say pre-pandy 2019? Are you seeing that effort that wasn't, that was there in 2019, and maybe are they kind of pulling back now just because it doesn't seem like that they have to try? I'll give it to either one of you.
Yeah, I would say that having been on both sides of helping, sellers and buyers, being on the listing side right now, it gives you like a really great window into how agents are treating this market. And it's shocking to me how many agents are doing a terrible job at handling this. So, one of the things I'm sure Austin will agree with this, or I'm sorry, Ian, is that you're in Austin.
He owns Austin.
Right. But a really great sign of a really great agent is someone that's going to reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, what are your clients looking for? I can't tell you how many offers I get from buyers agents that they never call. They just send an email. They never call to tell me that they, sent in an offer. And, that's just striking to me of how unprepared some of these agents are to aggressively handle this market. Or, sending in offers, still asking for, seller paid closing costs on a home that, just got listed yesterday. That they may be doing what the buyer wants them to do, but it also kind of tells me that they're not having a realistic conversation with their buyers and preparing them for what this market is. So, I think the easy part right now, and Ian will agree, is being a listing agent right now. Even those homes with crappy pictures are still eventually selling, whereas, in a normal market that wouldn't happen. But I think it's more so the buyer's agents that I'm seeing that are more, ill-equipped to handle this market more so than the listing agents.
Ian?
I saw an article, I think yesterday or the day before, and it said there are now more realtors than there are houses to sell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's probably true. That's probably true because you have so many people that are jumping in saying, "Oh, it's a hot market," or and then the other side of it is you have a lot of people that were in a market or understood their business, and then it all shifted, and now they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of both of those, and so yeah, I think having a strong agent is really going to be a benefit toward you.
Good. And how would you recommend that first-time home buyers? And guys, we've got a ton of questions coming in, so I think we're going to be busy for the next hour. So, but how would you say? But I think first-time home buyers or any buyers, it's important to get this information. So, one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, what can first-time home buyers or even home buyers today do to equip themselves to find the right realtor? So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to answer those, to answer that question, and I'll give it to you guys. What can they do?
I always stay silent because I'm always told let a lady go first.
I
understand we're in 2021. I just, I don't want to just
Go for it, Ian.
So we're talking about how to find a good realtor. Is that the
question? How can a first time home buyer or any buyer in this market find a good realtor? What does that look like?
So I would say think through who you're looking for, what it is that you need to understand or you need help with, right? So if your realtor has never done a deal, never done a transaction, if they're a friend of the family, like a lot of times you just hear somebody give a name, or you'll see them online, or you'll see them on somewhere on an ad, and you'll just click it, or you'll see a sign and you just call it and you don't know anything about them. Interview them, ask them some questions. Say, hey, what do you like about this neighborhood? Or, hey, what can you tell me a little bit about your business? Anything like that. And you can quickly discover if someone should be able to quickly discover if someone knows what they're doing or not. And don't just, I mean, I'm not going to say don't just say, but the question every realtor gets is how is the market?
Mm-hmm.
I would elaborate a little more. What do you want to know about the market? Because a good realtor is trained to answer that without answering that like a politician.
Well, and to that, I would say that if the agent is not giving accurate information about the market right now and is not being honest with a buyer or a seller, I think that's a huge red flag. And if your agent is just telling you, oh, the market's great, it's going to be easy to find you a home, or yeah, let's go out there and do it, without giving you that education, that to me, that's a red flag. And that's someone that I wouldn't want to work with, because I would want the information straight up of how it is. I'm a huge proponent of social proof. So, go online, look for reviews, look to see if they have a Facebook page, if they have a YouTube channel, all of those things. And if they do have a Facebook page, but they haven't updated it in 6 months, that's really someone that I don't know that I want to be working with, because to me, it shows that they're maybe not running their business like a business, because at the end of the day, it is, and this is their full-time job, or it should be. So that's, definitely something that you want to look into as well. And ask those questions. I think the biggest thing, the insight is do that interview.
Yep.
I love the social proof comment. That's a really strong observation and comment. That's a really strong one. So I would add to that, if you are checking for reviews, make sure they're real.
Yeah. For
crying out loud, make sure these people aren't just faking it so that it looks like they do a lot of business. That I see that a lot. I mean, I've seen that in the industry.
I was going to say, how many of those are fake?
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
So
that's everywhere.
So Kelly Shrimp also said right before, which universe has better housing market? So Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
So we got one from Jakir Hassan. Question: I want to buy my second home, Fairfax, Virginia. My second home budget is $425,000. I want to put 10% down. Should I wait for the first half of 2022? Please suggest what was the best way to buy a second home.
So if you're buying a second home, and truly like it's a second home where you're keeping your first home, that 10% down payment is going to have to be a lot more. The lending requirements for a traditional loan, so a conventional loan, they're going to require you to put down a minimum of 20%. Interest rates are higher for a second home as well. And those regulations have recently kind of changed a little bit. Fannie Mae, the guidelines have changed. So I recently looked into this myself with buying another investment property and saw that the interest rates are now in the 4s, whereas, a couple months ago, I bought an investment property and it was in the low 3s. So waiting until next year, I think we can all kind of agree that the feds are anticipating that the interest rates are going to increase over the next year. So waiting until 2022, although prices may cool off a little bit, or we're not going to see quite the buying frenzy, I think you're kind of trading one problem for another. So, you may save $10,000 or $15,000 on a home, not having to compete against multiple offers, but then you're going to be paying a lot more in interest. So you got to kind of balance those two things out and evaluate the situation that you're in now and what you can afford.
I think another variable to that conversation is, where are you getting that down payment? Is it money that you've saved? Is it money that you're borrowing against equity from from your primary residence? And that's really a question to ask with your lender, or to talk about with your lender and maybe your accountant. But I agree. I think that it would be, you don't know what's going to happen next year. You know what's going on right now. And I think we always talk about that as realtors.
Yeah. So I think not being the expert here, but being the fan and listening to you guys, I think the best thing to do is evaluate it with a mortgage broker, or somebody who's dealing with your investments at this point in time, and make sure that is something you can do. Because if it's something you want, is it worth it? That you've got to make that call. You've got to make the call. Is it worth it to you at this point in time? Do you want to wait? It's a risk. just like taking it now would be a risk in a sense.
You know, and I'd almost ask if that second home, if the point was to have rental income, like if it was intended to have income, because some people are just buying it, they have the surplus and it's fine, but other people, they want it to be able to turn over. And in a place like Austin, I deal with this a lot, where you're often in a negative delta, right? So that plan doesn't always work out like people anticipate. So yeah, I would just really, really evaluate your costs and what your assumptions are.
So we got another question from Kristen Moses that says, do either of you know about post-frame homes, barndominiums, and the best way to get financing for them? My husband and I are looking to purchase several acres and build on it. Sarah?
Yeah, so that's becoming a popular thing here in Georgia, and the lending guidelines on those are a little bit tricky. So from everything that I have learned is that you want to go towards your local credit unions and some of your smaller banks that are providing financing. They will have more experience with those. Also reach out and try to find builders will have a great recommendation too, because they've encountered this problem with previous people that they've built these barndominiums for too. I've also heard that it all kind of depends too on how it's presented to the lender as well. So if you don't call it a barndominium, but just call it that you're building a house and don't call it that, then you're not going to potentially run into that problem. But yeah, definitely check with your local credit unions. Those are kind of more the wheelhouse for those loans.
I'm not building a barndominium, but I'm building a metal house that will cause people to live in it. Not a barndominium.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Ian.
I'm not going to say I'll just say it. I don't have any experience helping someone build one, but I've seen a few of them cropping up. Mostly it's been traditional style homes. We have a lot of acreage out here, but the land is quite costly. And when people start going down the path, at least in Austin, once they start going down the path of building something like that, they almost turn around and say, I'm just going to buy something, or it happens a lot. It really does. Just because of the cost of materials and land right now. Unfortunately.
And I do know that I did hear that in Texas, it was actually pretty popular, but I'm assuming not in the Austin area, or from what I gather is like South Texas. So like Houston, that area.
Yeah. We have a lot of greater, more rural areas that I'm sure it's really popular in, but Austin it really is exploding, and people that have land, they're holding on to it, and people that are letting go of land, people that are trying to buy land, that's going to eat up a lot of their profit or their planned costs.
It's like gold right now.
It is. They call us, what is it? Silicon Hills, I think is what they call us right now.
Probably. So PR, thank you very much. So PR put out question, Eddie, you're doing a fabulous job. Thank you.
Love it.
So let me just go through real quick. We do have a couple more questions, and then we will go to the article. So Hot Boys put in a question. What's up with the home builders now only selling inventory homes instead of custom built homes in Texas? So, Sarah, do you want to revert this over to Ian?
Well, I'm assuming that it's going to be similar in your market too, Sarah, is it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is. And so I recently ran into this. I had clients coming in from out of state looking at new construction opportunities and called up two of my favorite communities. And they stated that they are no longer doing pre-sales. They will not release a home until it's gotten to the framing stage. And primarily the reason for that is that the builders right now have a really hard time narrowing down what their actual cost is on building the house. And they don't want to be put in a predicament where they're having to go back to a buyer that they have under contract and say, hey, we need to increase the price of this home by $30,000 because our expenses has gone up and it's costing us more to build that house. And I've heard of that happening with other builders here. And what a nightmare, right? I mean, you don't want that as a buyer. So builders' way of working around that is just to say, hey, we're not going to release these houses until we know what we actually have in them and we can accurately price that house. And for the builders here, that's whenever they get to the framing stage. And it makes it so hard right now to plan whenever you're, trying to help people find a home, because typically new construction is kind of like a safe bet where you have definite timelines and you know when that house is going to be completed and you can make plans around it. But if you can't even go and put a home under construction, or I'm sorry, under contract, for another couple of months, and then you don't even know if you're going to get it, because then they're only releasing 5 or so at a time. It's really hard.
I was going to say, Sarah, your builders are nicer than Ian's, because I believe that happened a lot in Austin. Go ahead, Ian.
It did. It happened a lot. So, okay. So if we backpedal to 2008, there were a lot of builders in this area that went bankrupt. Mm-hmm. Right? Smaller builders, because they just didn't know how to handle it. And I'm not comparing today to 2008, but there's still people with that mentality. How do I avoid getting myself into a position where I can't dig myself out of a hole? Right? And so it does go back to budget. And then you have to ask, which is the lesser of two evils? Do I build the house and wait till it's close to being done and then release it at maximum profit? Or do I go and I get a contract and then I adjust my pricing along the way so that I can make maximum profit? Because in both cases, for the builder, their job is, they're building a home, but they want to profit off of it. It's still a business at the end of the day. Between the two, I prefer the inventory approach, but it does get very frustrating when you have someone who wants to build. They want to pick their own tiles. They want to find their own flooring and color those cabinets, and they don't get to do any of it. It's like, no, this is what it looks like. It'll be done in 2 months. Do you want it? Yes, no, okay. If you don't, there are 3,000 other people that are ready to buy it right now.
Yeah,
that's the problem. There's that many people ready to buy. Mm-hmm. So my question is going to be this though, and I'm going to ask off of this question: with lumber dropping, do we see home builders bringing back the cost and keeping profits to where they normally do? Or are we going to start seeing builders just say, forget that percentage, it be 40% or whatever it is that we make off of it profit wise, forget it, and we're just going to keep riding this wave, even though lumber and material costs are starting to pull back a little bit? What do you guys think?
That's a great question, and I just had that conversation with a buyer yesterday. Is lumber prices have fallen over the past week substantially. In my opinion, I feel like builders have now set that appraisal kind of precedent, and I do not foresee a scenario where they're going to decrease the price of houses. Maybe they'll get more comfortable with going back to doing the pre-sales and things like that, but they're still so, at least out here in Georgia, they're backed up in production. They got to get caught up first. And, I think maybe the right thing to do would be to decrease those prices of the houses and adjust it back down. But I think kind of like that profit first mentality is probably, going to prevail. And at the end of the day, they've got to look out for what's in the best interest of them as well. So it's a really hard predicament.
Yeah, I was going to say, the money comes, you think they're going to drop back and say, you know what, now we're going to give them a break. So Ian,
I think once the inventory relaxes a bit, and the demand relaxes a teensy bit. What I anticipate builders will do is, instead of dropping prices, they might add in incentives. And we've seen that before, right? Where they give you extra money toward the design center process or something like that. So I don't see them dropping prices. Why would they?
Yeah, I agree.
They have to, unless they're squeezed.
Yeah. So Casper asked, just signed for a new house in Dallas, Texas, June for $642,000. Complete in 2022. The same house was $548,000 in April. FOMO'd. I just saw that lumber prices have fallen. Did I make a bad decision? I'm sorry.
I love it.
You can take that one, Ian.
So FOMO, for those on the stream who haven't heard, it's fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Not one I used before.
Well, so here's what's interesting. This scenario it plays out month over month here in the Austin area, or I guess in many cities in Texas. And I'm assuming other places in the United States as well. So is it a bad decision? The only time it's a bad decision is if you don't want a house, right? That's really it. And you don't need a house, or you're buying it as an impulse and you want to turn it over to sell it right away. And then something crashes. You only lose money. You only lose value when you sell the asset, right? So if you need a house for your family, it stinks that it's a little more money. And possibly you could have done it sooner, but who knows? That's kind of just the name of the game. We're not trying to time the market here. We're trying to build families and wealth, and if it's a long-term purchase, which it should be, right? It's a home, and you're going to be in it 5 to 7 years like normal, then I don't see it being a bad decision. But I don't have a crystal ball.
No, none of us do. Sarah, did you bring yours?
Crystal ball.
Yeah, no, I don't have one of those. And that is one of the hardest things I think right now, being an agent in this market, is guiding buyers through that process. Even on the resale side, when you're competing against multiple offers and a buyer will ask, how much do I need to offer to win this? And again, we don't have, crystal balls, and, sometimes it is nuts. Houses are selling for, 50, 75,000 over asking price for some of the best homes. And I have to, tell my buyers, like, what is the price that you're willing to pay, so that if you lost it for $1 more, you would be okay with that. And then again, it's also the question of, is this house an 8, 9, or 10 for you and your family? And is this your dream home? Are you going to be here for a while? And if that answer is yes, then, spend what you feel comfortable with, and just go for it, because, no one has that crystal ball. We cannot predict what's going to happen in the future. But what we do know is that over time, investing in the housing market is a really smart decision.
So I'm going to ask you guys this one, because this channel is built on affordable housing. It's built on, like Ian said, generational wealth, but that wealth isn't always with $400,000 or $500,000. That doesn't start with $400,000 or $500,000, especially those families, like we had talked about earlier, the first-time home buyer. There are some first-time home buyers that can afford that, but for the mass majority of the U.S. and all over the world even, but let's talk about the U.S., is that first-time home buyers don't have that. So where do we find, and how do we find that affordable housing? How can we, because pricing of housing, just like you guys both said, going down. It's not going down. Even if lumber prices snap back and I can get a 2x4 for $2, it's not going down. Unless obviously we come to a point where there's more houses than there are people wanting them. But with Gen Z starting, or millennials and Gen Z starting to buy houses, is it Gen Z or millennials? Which one? Millennials buying houses now. That's the biggest market coming into it, and they have surpassed population-wise to the baby boomers. So, which was the biggest group of people. So what do you guys think that solution is, based on, and I don't want to go away from what the channel is built on. It's built on affordable housing. So I give it to you guys to give your little campaign before I go into the next questions.
Yeah, I think that one's so tough. And it's something that I struggle with. It's incredibly hard to find right now in my market a decent price entry-level home. And if you do find one right now in today's market, you're competing against 15, 20 offers. 5 of those are going to be cash offered from investors looking to rent out the house. Another problem that we have here, and that I'm sure, Ian, you have out in Austin, is that you have a bunch of hedge funds that are buying up a ton of inventory of houses, making very competitive offers. They're paying cash for these homes, and they're turning around and turning them into rental houses. I saw someone post something the other day that one of these hedge funds owns more property in a town than the actual town does. And kind of thinking about the long-term impact that's going to have on communities and for first-time home buyers, it is so hard. And I think that answer kind of goes back to my, or that question goes back to my answer earlier of having an agent that will think outside of the box, that will really, kind of hit the ground searching for that home for you, calling, knocking on doors, trying to find that home off market for you. I also think that there's an opportunity right now, if you find for sale by owners. You have people that are kind of going that route, and there's less competition with those. And so there might be a little bit more affordability in that. And that some of these for sale by owners don't really know the true value of their home. And I've seen some underpricing of some of those houses where they could have gotten a lot more on the open market. And I've also seen a lot more recently of families living together. So generational family living, where you have, the parents and the kids, two families living together. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see a lot in the long term, having to deal with some of these, challenges with finding affordable housing. It's really, really hard.
So Sarah, before you continue on, that actually was the second question from CC Moon. I just put it up. Are you seeing multi-generational family purchases, new homes together versus single unmarried person? So that kind of actually was, it's funny that you led into that, because that was the next question that came up. So
yeah. So here in Georgia, at least in the North Metro Atlanta area, we have a lot of basement houses. And so it's really popular to kind of finish out the basement, and you can put it in a second kitchen and kind of have that two separate living spaces. But yeah, it's been a real popular trend, but it's also really hard to find. So, it's kind of like that catch-22, is that you have a lot of people looking for it. There's also low inventory of homes that kind of fit that need. And you're definitely not really going to find that in a new construction. So again, it kind of takes patience and, the ability to find an agent that can find you what you're looking for, or have the ability to turn in a house to what you need it to be, so that you can have two families living together. But yes, it is. I'm seeing much more demand for that and getting more phone calls of people looking for that.
Ian?
So the multi-generational thing, I really like that. We have had an influx of new builds, new construction homes, and even tear downs and rebuild houses where they will do exactly that, where they'll focus on adding an ADU, some kind of additional dwelling unit onto the house. There are loopholes they have to do to make it work here, because you're not, you can't escape having to pay utilities on another unit, right? So, but there are some builders that have found a way around it. And when those come on the market, so let's say there's a neighborhood of 5,000 houses that are going to be released, and even 500 of them are multi-generational, they are gone very quickly. Very quickly. Love those. So I would say the demand is high. Where it gets tough is, unlike Georgia, we don't have basements here because of our soil. And so we don't have that luxury. So you have to build out, which is more expensive, or you have to build up. And generally, when you're talking multi-generational, you don't want to add stairs, because it's hard to run up and down the stairs. So the costs are increased here, generally.
Even though they do in New York and other places.
Sometimes you become a product of what's available. That's it. You just have to do it. You don't.
Texas people. Look at the Texas people just make an excuse. No, I'm just kidding. They do in the Northeast all day long.
Yeah. No, I'm from Chicago.
Okay.
So I absolutely love basements. I wish I had a basement here one day. And there are a few people, if you pay a premium, you can have a basement. All these big buildings have basements. There was another question that Sarah, you had answered about the hedge funds. So I wanted to touch on that for the Austin area. We have a lot of neighborhoods. So if it's a master planned community, they're locking out investors.
Oh.
And that really, it's upsetting to investors when they come to me and they say, I want to buy this home. And I'm like, is this your primary residence? And they say, no. I said, well, then I can't help you. It's something. That's a conversation that I've had to have a lot. And it doesn't matter if you're a hedge fund or whatever. And there have been people that have said, I want to buy an entire neighborhood. The builder that's building out the neighborhood has to say no, or the developer, no, won't do it, because they want families to move in here.
That's impressive. So actually, Sarah, you bringing that up, back in, I want to say February, March, Kristina brought that up on the channel, that hedge funds like BlackRock, Blackstone were buying into neighborhoods, and only those two, was used as an example, and going through some of the comments in the comment section was, well, that's a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy theory. And actually, I believe it was New York Times was the first one to actually put the article out on it. And that's where she had gotten it from. So,
yeah. So
now it's out.
Yeah, so I've personally experienced this in the Atlanta market, where I first noticed this like in December of 2020. I got a really great offer on a house from a bigger brokerage that traditionally buys houses and then turns around and flips them. But they were representing a hedge fund because they were the exclusive partner with this hedge fund to buy up houses. And, the fear was that they were going to come in, put the home under contract, come in with a huge list of repairs that they wanted to do so that they could, turn around and make a profit on it. And after speaking with the agent representing, this hedge fund, it was no, we're going to use it as a rental. We hardly ever ask for repairs. And it was a great scenario for the seller because it was a cash offer. They didn't ask for any repairs. It was very competitive with the other offers that we had received. And that was the offer that the seller ended up going with. And for better, for worse, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. But I've had many sellers to kind of take advantage of this buyer because they've been in a situation where they've needed to sell in order to buy. But it's almost like a guaranteed sell because you have this cash person buying this house that it's going to close. They're not going to ask for any repairs. They're making really great offers, and it's giving them the confidence to be able to go out and buy the next house, kind of like without that contingency. And I've personally had this hedge fund buy 7 or 8 houses from sellers that I personally represented. And, agents in my brokerage, we talk about it all the time where they're getting these offers from the hedge fund. But, at least in the Atlanta market, since December of 2020, they've bought, well over a couple thousand homes, and they're not stopping. They have a ton of cash. But long term, just that implication got like, it would just be, it's going to be so interesting to see what that implication on the market is, 5-10 years down the road, because if they're holding those homes for that long, it's just taking out inventory for other people to buy later on down the road and kind of creating that generational wealth as well.
Yep. So what I do want to get to, we had a subscriber sent Kristina an article this week, and it was talking about, let's get to it real quick. The housing market is on fire. The feds keep adding gasoline to it. And basically what it was talking about was how the market feels like, even though the feds are doing things to try to help the housing market, they're also adding gasoline to it by buying the bonds, buying mortgage bonds, which is causing an inflation still. And, this continues to be a problem, even if they do try to set things, to try to help first-time home buyers or even just buyers in general, just because of the fact that they keep flooding in with more money and pushing it even higher. So I wanted to hear what you guys thought about this. And had you guys seen this? This article came out yesterday.
Yeah, that's such a hard one.
I know.
I
know. That's my job. I'm supposed to throw you guys on the hot seat.
Yeah, I think some of the the ultimate implications of having an ultimate increase in interest rates, for better or for worse, I do think it's going to be like one of the saving graces of this market to kind of balance it out a little bit, so that it's going to kick some home buyers out of the market and kind of go back to renting. But in all reality, they're already there in that situation right now because they can't compete with, what currently is what's going on. So in my opinion, kind of having ultimately that increase is, going to be like a necessary evil.
So in here it's and I'm highlighting it, despite surging home prices that are rising at the fastest pace on record, the Federal Reserve continues to prop up the housing market by purchasing $40 billion, and yes, I did say that with a B, of mortgage bonds each month. So they're doing this each month. They're not, here's a little bit for, the last 6 months and we're going to hold off. Even though they're keeping interest rates low, they're turning around and buying these bonds and continuing to push this market up. So, Ian?
This is Like Sarah said, this is a really tough one. I would say, okay, I'm in a position in my life, and this is not for boasting, but more for fear, right? And experience. I buy all my vehicles, everything I purchase with cash, unless I can leverage some kind of investment. But I purchase with cash specifically for this reason. I do not want that much debt, and I'm seeing the world. I'm seeing the United States, I'm seeing the government put so much debt back on their shoulders over and over and over. And it's so that we can purchase houses, or so that they're more affordable, so that we don't have to worry about whether or not we'll be able to purchase houses. And so we don't have to, so we can avoid a crash. And it's just, there's so much depth to this. I don't think any of us truly understand. We all want to, right? But I don't think any of us truly understand how big or how deep this hole is that we're all digging ourselves in. And I also don't mean to be morbid about it, but that's when I said earlier that I'm a little worried. 40 billion a month.
Mm-hmm. That's a bit to be.
That obliterates poverty or something. I mean, it's got to do something, right?
Yeah. And we had a subscriber
number. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Ian. We had a subscriber. This kid just wrote in, who does it benefit to buy the bonds? Hedge funds or working class buyers? I'm going to tell you it's hedge funds.
Yeah, and I think
anything interest related.
The intention is thinking that it's going to help.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thinking that it's going to help home buyers right now by having the ability to keep the interest rates low, but with the amount of competition out there, that's not the result that it's actually having. If anything, there needs to be less competition and more supply. Sellers need to have more confidence that they can put their home on the market and then turn around and have a house to buy. And I don't think that's going to happen until the demand is a little bit diminished. And the only way to do that is by an increase in interest rates. There was an article, or it was announced 2 days ago, that the Fed interest rate was expected to go up 2 more times by 2022, which, in a loose way, interest rates are somewhat tied to, or not directly tied to, but they do kind of correlate. And there was that kind of warning out there that, interest rates are going to go up, which we've all kind of expected. And I feel like, if you talk to a lot of real estate agents that are in this every single day, I think they would tell you that ultimately that is what is needed to kind of help cool things down a little bit, to kind of stop the madness.
Hey, Sarah, I apologize. Can you turn down the volume? I believe it might be your computer. Can you turn down the volume just a tad? There's an echo. That's the only reason why. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So that was the article that I did want to go over and kind of pick you guys' brain and see what you guys thought on it. It does scare me when I saw it, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at. That's huge amount. I mean, to turn around and talk out of both sides of your mouth and say, interest rates are going to stay low. We're going to keep them low throughout the year. I believe Jerome Powell just said that earlier this week. We're going to try to keep them low throughout the year. We're going to reevaluate it fourth quarter of this year, late fourth quarter. But at the other side, let's buy $40 billion of bonds on it. So
we're already having an issue with affordability as a word, right? Even though that's relative to the location or the market that you're entering. The affordability changes drastically when the interest rates change. And so the people that are already having a hard time, I don't think it's going to be easier once the interest rates goes up. Mm-hmm. Like it just doesn't add up. It becomes more difficult for those same buyers to be able to purchase something.
Yep.
It's really tough.
So we got another question from Vegan Meow. And this question: will move-in ready homes that are empty sell faster than the average house on the market?
In a normal market, it would kind of depend upon the decor that you have and kind of how on trend or how stage worthy it is. In my opinion, if you have mixed match furniture, kind of older furniture, things that don't really go well, then I would say that yes, the home would sell faster if it was empty. And I would say that with the caveat that in today's market, it doesn't matter, at least not in my area.
What I've noticed is that sellers often shoot themselves in the foot because they won't leave when they need to leave if they need to show a house, and rightfully so. If you have kids, if you have animals, if you have all these things going on, working from home,
Yeah.
it makes it really challenging to show a house. And I start seeing frustration from sellers that are in the home saying, well, these people, are they even interested? It's like, well, I don't know, but let them see the home. So that I've experienced that a lot. So to answer the question, I'd say yes. If it's staged well and vacant, I've seen more success, rapid success. It doesn't mean they won't sell. I've seen it sell a little quicker in most cases.
And guys, with 400,
I think that question is a very great question, and kind of like, which leads me to the fact of why you need a real estate agent quicker than what you think you do. So your local agent in your market is going to be able to answer that question and give you, what they're seeing in your market and help kind of guide you through that process. Because like Ann said, if you're working from home, there's dogs, there's kids, you may want to have that house empty and already be in your next house, but just because it's going to make your life easier, and the house is going to sell better than all of that chaos going on while you're trying to do showings. But it's always better to talk to that real estate agent much earlier than what you think you need to, just for that very reason, so that you're not causing unnecessary frustration or harm to yourself, or thinking that you do have to empty out your house when you don't. It just all kind of depends on the area.
It always baffled me when you would walk in a house and the owner's still there with all their dogs and their kids and everything else, and you're like, this is my time to see your place. like I know it's lived in, and I know that, and that's perfect. Like, I want to be able to imagine myself in it and everything else, but not with your family. No offense, I just don't want to imagine myself living in your house, your family.
Right.
So one thing I do want to say, there's 484 viewers out there right now watching this live stream, and only like 107 likes. So if you do like it, if you don't like it, go ahead and hit either one. It doesn't matter. Just hit one of them.
Yeah.
And let's show Kristina that this community is huge. So next question, CC Moon said, with the housing pricing, with the house prices, is anyone getting a mortgage for 15 years on home, or is everyone getting a 30-year mortgage? I'm part of FIRE. I can't imagine being debt free in your 60s and 70s.
Again, that kind of goes back to the affordability factor, and if you can afford to have a 15-year mortgage, and kind of what your long-term plans are. There's some people that would, I'm sure there's some financial people that would give you the advice of, with interest rates being so incredibly low right now, with that 30-year mortgage, you can take the money and invest it and get a better return, someplace else, and then pay off your house faster that way. I personally, yes, I do have clients that are doing 15-year mortgages because those interest rates are still incredibly low as well. But ultimately, it depends on kind of what your end goal is, and how much income and cash you have right now to be able to afford to do a 15-year mortgage. A lot of people can't.
I think 15-year mortgage, I'm going to use the word a farce, right? And the reason why I say that is because you can just get a 30-year mortgage and pay it off sooner. And it really depends on the interest rate. But just like Sarah said, if you can leverage that money, if you're getting an interest rate in the 2s and you can go invest it and make 8% on the same money, then a lot of savvy investors, or people that think they are savvy investors, maybe that's the way to say it, will go and do that instead, right? And so, I have not had, I don't know if I've had anyone in the last 6 or so months asking to get a 15-year mortgage. But I don't know what FIRE is. What's FIRE?
I think it also depends on, I think that's where you retire early by your 40s. It's like an acronym that stands for something.
I didn't get FOMO'd or whatever it was before. Right. So you think I'm getting FIRE?
I don't know.
We're even now. But I think also to that question, I think it also depends on how long you're going to be in that house. Is that your last house that you're ever going to buy? But if you're, of the most of the people where you're going to sell your house every 5 to 7 years, 15 years rarely makes sense in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we got another, give me one second, from Logic 161. And I think I just hit off. This one says, do you guys have people contacting you to help them get in contact with some of the big companies like Blackstone to sell their home directly to them? No, I wouldn't assume so. Do you guys? Or are you?
Well, I think the question that they're asking is, do we have people, needing to sell their home quickly and fast, and they're considering some of these iBuyer companies are selling directly to an investor? And that answer is yes. And again, it's one of those points as to why you need to talk to a local agent. Some of my clients, it's the best possible decision for their scenario that they can make. And for other clients, they are leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table by doing that. And so each market kind of varies, and it's why you need to talk to a local agent. And a good one will be honest with you and will give it to you, give you the facts straight, and will let you know, and help guide you in answering that question of what's best for your family. But it is important to talk to someone locally that will help you with that.
One of our longtime subscribers, or Kristina's longtime subscribers, Lawnmower out of Dallas, wrote in, Eddie Smallhorn, I fall into fire category. I'm retiring in 2 weeks. So I'm assuming it has something to do with retirement. So
yeah, I looked it up, and I've seen a couple comments that said financial independence, retire early. It's obviously it's a very logical term. I love it.
Yes.
Give me so. Another question from S. Adams is, what's your advice for buyers agents to do to get their offers accepted in today's market?
That's a great one.
Obviously, the letters aren't as much as you can use anymore.
So I coach clients to have as short as due diligence as possible. So the terms may vary, but essentially what that is your inspection time period. I like to pre-schedule a home inspection. So if you're using a great agent, they'll have a really great relationship with a couple of home inspectors that they trust and that they like, that they can get in with on a very short notice because of the relationship that we have with them. So whenever I submit offers, I tell an agent like, hey, we can have a home inspector out there tomorrow at 2. Having as strong as earnest money as possible. So that earnest money is part of your down payment. And in a typical market, it's like 1 to 2% of the purchase price. But if that money is going to go towards your down payment regardless, go ahead and make that as strong as you possibly can. That indicates to a seller that you're very, very serious about that offer. Talk with your lender or with the lender to see if the buyer can waive their financing contingency period, waiving that appraisal contingency, or stating that you're going to cover an appraisal gap up to X amount. Those are some strategies that I've personally used, but really it's a combination of all of those things that is most effective, and having that proactive agent that will reach out to the agent, find out what's most important to the seller. If the seller needs to move out on a certain date or wants to close escrow on a certain date, put that in your offer. And it's also on the back end, educating and having that conversation with clients up front so that they know what to expect. And so when they fall in love with a home, and then you're telling them everything that they need to do to win an offer, and they're like, what? I can't do all that. I mean, that's just the worst thing. It's almost, you're doing your disservice as an agent by putting your buyers in a situation that they're not prepared for. And so I personally like to create something called a buying power checklist. And it's a checklist of all the ideas of what you can do to win a house. And the more of those that we can check off, the more prepared we are. But I have that conversation with clients up front so that they know what they're getting themselves into.
Ken?
Sarah is 100% right, period. No, I would say the
that's an easy way out.
It is. So the terms, there are many terms. So like Sarah said with her buying power checklist, I really like that idea, by the way. I might have to talk to you about that. Just the terminology, buying power check. So, but adjusting all of these terms, such as, do I need a home warranty? Will I be difficult when it comes time to negotiation, to have negotiations during your due diligence period? I've had people that like multiple times have negotiated themselves out of a contract. It's like, you had this beautiful house well under what someone else would have paid. We have won offers where the where we were not the highest offer. And then they're sitting here trying to nickel and dime the sellers. And I'm like, if you want this house, you should get this house.
Mm-hmm.
These are not big issues. It's just,
So-
that's the part. Be very pragmatic about what you can do for your terms, and then what you're going and how you approach the listing agent when you go to them with the offer.
So I do want to touch on that in 1 second, Ian, as far as the not appraisal, but the inspection. But give me 1 second, because Jennifer Lego gave a $5 super chat, and I greatly appreciate that, Miss Jennifer. When a buyer is willing to cover an appraisal gap, what is their limit? And I will be willing to go up to 5% above appraisal value in the Midwest.
So, if you're just waiving the appraisal contingency altogether, you are telling the seller that you will cover any appraisal gap. Now, that's a conversation that you want to have with your lender, and it really depends on how much money you're putting down as to how much flexibility you have in that. And your lender can guide you through that conversation of kind of what those ratios play out to be with an appraisal whenever you're putting down, once you hit that 20% threshold of a down payment, the appraisal becomes less important to the loan. And they can kind of talk to you a little bit more about that. But you can put a limit on it, but just know that you're going to be competing potentially against some people out there that are not putting a limit on it. But 5% seems to be a good number. And you just want to make sure that your agent puts that into the contract and words it in a specific way to make sure that you're protected and that money is protected if you are putting a limit on it.
Yeah, in Texas, we have a full waiver. So you can just say whatever amount over, or you can do a partial waiver and write the amount that you're willing to go over. So if it's 5%, then we would write that number into the contract.
Okay. And so I go back into that, Ian, you had touched on it before about inspections. Are you guys still seeing inspections being waived? I mean, personally, me, I would have a hard time doing that. And I know Kristina's talked about it before. If she sees a waived inspection, she'll A, advise against it, and B, put a limit on it. So if it reaches over $1,000, then the seller would have to, then that would go into negotiation at this point in time. But if anything is below $1,000 or whatever that number is, then they could go ahead and waive it. Are you guys still seeing those in your markets? Sarah?
Me personally, I'm with Kristina. I don't advise my clients to do that. I suggest, and I think most good agents they would kind of feel the same way, and they wouldn't want their own client to do that either. So, putting a shortest contingency in there for that due diligence inspection time period, 2 to 3 days at the most, or another strategy that we have here in Georgia, and I'm not sure how it is out there in Texas, but we can do a 0-day due diligence period. So let me back up. In Georgia, during that inspection time period, you can back out of the contract for any reason whatsoever, simply just for changing your mind. So sellers want that to be as short as possible. So one kind of like mind trick strategy is to do 0-day due diligence, but to write into the contract that you have 2 days right to inspect and request repairs. And what that does is it gives the seller assurance that you can't back out of the contract just for waking up tomorrow morning and changing your mind. You have to go through that inspection process. And you can also add in stipulations, like Kristina said, of only requesting repairs for items over $1,000. There's various ways that you can indicate to the seller that you're very serious about that house without having to completely waive an inspection.
Mm-hmm. So before today, I've never met Sarah. I'm going to tell you she's a good agent.
Well, there you go.
Those are really good. Those are really good. So yes, the 0-day due diligence period. And so in Texas, when you write a contract, the first day is day 0, right? So if we write 3 days, we actually have 3.5 or whatever, right? So that's part of it. But also, I guess to answer the question, I would never recommend that someone does not go through with an inspection unless they are frequent home buyers, investors, something to that effect, or they're licensed inspectors or even realtors themselves. And even realtors should know better. So inspectors are kind of my best friends in that regard. I think I need them because it covers everyone's butt.
Yes.
Really, that's what they're there for, right? It's just they're non-biased. They're like, look, these are the facts. Do with it what you will. It's your honey-do list at the worst. Or at the best.
I'm going to say I'm going to say this, and hopefully no inspectors are on the chat right now.
There's one.
Oh, there's one. I'm going to say this about inspectors. You hate them during the time of inspection because they nitpick everything and they question everything. But after the purchase, they have saved you sometimes thousands of dollars.
Sarah has done a very solid job of explaining how she coaches her clients, and that's part of it. If you're going to coach your clients that are buyers, especially first-time buyers, understanding that a 75-page inspection report on a house built in the 80s might be commonplace in your market. Yep.
So we got PR he put it as a question, but it's not really a question, but this is very, very true. And let's put it out. Question: low-income families, including retirees, are being squeezed out of the market. It's sad. And it really is. And I know Kristina's talked about it before as far as affordable housing and how do we help these people. She has, talked to a few people about government assistance. And when we talk about government assistance, it wasn't in the sense of, handing money over to customers, but handing supplies to builders and creating builders in a sense like what they did after World War II, incentivize builders to build affordable housing for people, incentivize them by, either making sure that, supplies are at a cost and a fixed cost of, riding the wave of the market of supplies, but incentivize in such way like that to builders to constantly create affordable housing so that American dream stays alive. Because we all know, and I think Ian and Sarah, you might have touched on it earlier. As a matter of fact, I remember being touched on earlier, is that that is the first part of creating income, of creating wealth, is that American dream, buying that home. And that is being pushed out by a lot of people. Like a lot of people being squeezed, just like PR said here, being squeezed out. Do you guys have any thoughts of that? And I know we've touched on it a little bit before, but like I said, Kristina had that idea to help, and that being a possible solution. Obviously there is no one solution and there is no magic wand, but I think, we not only as the realtor community, the mortgage community, can look at it and say, hey, we need to help out. And how do we do that? So I give it to you guys.
I don't know if it's like this in your market, Ian, but there are some builders that have gotten special grants, or that the city has gotten grants to build special low-income housing, or I say low-income housing, or housing that's being built and it's only specifically reserved for a certain, population of home buyers, where there's income limits or restrictions where you can't make too much, and there's special incentives and subsidies that are given to help home buyers match them with the housing opportunities. But the inventory of those homes are far less than the actual demand and what we actually need. And you're going to find that all across the country. And it really is truly a heartbreaking problem that we have. And this current market is not making it, it's just exasperating. And it is really tough for first-time home buyers, low-income families. And it's heartbreaking when you get those phone calls of people that, you want to be able to help and solve that problem for them, but we simply don't have any, tools or anything like that out there available. I know Habitat for Humanity is an excellent program. It's a really strong program in the areas that I serve. And it's a lot of extra work, for those families to go through it, but the payoff there is truly, special for those families. And so that is something to, a resource that some families have available to look into as well.
Yeah. So just like you said, Sarah, it is one of those, it's so few and far between for the programs that we have here in the Austin area. In fact, Austin is one of those places, like many large metros, where we have, unfortunately, a large population of just homeless in general, right? And so, shoot, you have homeless and you have affordable housing. Like there are a lot of problems that need to be tackled. And when those become available, it's a battle in a sense.
And I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, perhaps, but I think for some people, the right answer is just finding more affordable places and areas to live.
Yeah.
So even the people that can't afford to move, states or move across the state, even, moving 30, 45 minutes away sometimes can make a huge impact in the affordability of housing. And I understand that there's other implications that come with that, jobs, schools, resources, and things like that. But sometimes that is, one of the very limited answers that can solve that problem for some people.
Okay. So I do want to hit on two, and guys, I do apologize if I haven't gotten to your questions. I am going to kind of let Sarah and Ian get back to their weekend and get back to celebrating Father's Day and with those, their families and all. But I do want to ask two questions. We do have two super chats that did come in, so I do want to get those answered, and then we're going to go through it. So Dewan 301, and I apologize if I butchered your name or your screen name. So what is your advice on getting a mortgage with zero money down? And what are your thoughts on manufactured homes?
Zero money down loans are very, very far and few between. So a lot of those programs, there are some lenders or some states that have zero money down or down payment assistance programs. And the kind of catch-22 with that is that whenever you're in an area that you're competing against multiple offers, the chances of you competing against an offer where someone has a conventional loan or cash and a seller is evaluating those offers, that is going to be something that's going to be a disadvantage. And that's just the fact of the matter. And it's just one of those things that makes buying a home right now so difficult, especially for people that are first-time home buyers that are taking, advantage or want to take advantage of those loan programs. If you're VA or USDA programs offer 100% financing, but again, with USDA, there's income limits. You have to live in a specific area to find those houses. It's really difficult. Just being honest.
I think I'm going to say if you are interested in a manufactured home, you might be able to get a zero money down USDA loan, at least here in Texas, for that manufactured home, assuming that it fits in the parameters according to the lender, and if you can find a lender that will support that type of home. So if you can make it work, I've seen zero down loans work. In fact, I just closed a VA last week. It's 1% funding fee, but it's zero down, and I've done USDA. I have not done even one manufactured home. It's just not very popular here.
It is extremely popular here in Louisiana. Oh yeah. But a lot of people, what they do is they put them on, stilts or lift them up, obviously, because of flooding, but it is extremely popular. And some of the manufactured homes are absolutely gorgeous. A lot of them are absolutely gorgeous. And you can probably walk through some of them. And I know I have walked through one of them and went, oh, this is a great home. And Kristina looked at me and she goes, it's a manufactured home. And I'm like, no, it's not. She's like, yes, it is.
They are here, but a lot of the counties or cities have banned creating new places for manufactured homes.
So I know in the bigger cities, it is. So like in Baton Rouge, you can't. I don't believe, and I could be corrected. Put a manufactured home up right now. Same with New Orleans. I could be wrong, and I could be out of term when I speak that, but I believe that those two are. Here you can, but obviously with the right permits and everything. But yeah. So
I think personally, they can be a great way to kind of get affordable housing. I think it's just one of those things that you need to recognize that the appreciation or the depreciation of those homes is always going to be a factor. And so, just kind of like with buying a brand new car, your sweet spot for reselling that later on down the road is not getting one with like all the available options and like the most expensive model. But if it's going to be something that's going to be your forever home, or that you're going to be in it for, 10, 15 years, I think it could be a really great option to solve that problem. And it's better than, renting and throwing money down the drain, especially if you're going to be in that home for that long.
Mm-hmm. And we got one other super chat from CC Moon. I'll be debt free in 6 years, including my house. At 41 years old, I'll stay in my little house. I could not afford my house today, not even renting. Thank you, CC Moon. I apologize. Oops, I didn't put that up. So, and I agree. If you can stay right where you're at, stay. I mean, if it's obviously you bought the house for a reason to begin with, if you have to buy for whatever reason because you're getting pushed out, and when I say pushed out, your family's just growing and you've outgrown that house, or, you moved, you've changed jobs and now your job is an hour and a half, 2 hours away. No offense. I mean, I drive 45 minutes to an hour to my job every day. I drive to New Orleans and back every single day. But I can't say a lot of people would. I had a job before that was in New Iberia. And if anybody knows Prairieville to New Iberia, that's an hour and 45 minutes at 5 o'clock in the morning. At night, that was a 3-hour drive. If I had to continue to do it, there was no way. And I know somebody had made a comment before towards Sarah's comment about, and I kind of saw it real quick, and Sarah, you called it, it wasn't going to be a popular comment, but somebody had mentioned, yeah, that's great. Have them move out. That's that easy. It's not that it's that easy, but it might be reality at some points. At some point you have to look at it and go, can I afford to be in this area? I want to be in this area, but I can't get in there. And I say this, affordable housing is an issue. Finding affordable housing for everybody is an issue. Again, that's the American dream. That's what we want. That's what, that's when we look at it as citizens, we've always looked at it as, when we grow up, we want to have a house, we want to have a family, we want to have a picket fence, we want to have the dogs, we want to have, just those things, and then reality hits, and it's not always that. And I'm not saying that, to be mean. It's in the sense that sometimes we have to look at ourselves and reevaluate and say, can we afford to be there? I mean, I want a lot of things. I can't afford them all the time. And it's a matter of, where can I afford to live, and where can my kids go to school, be safe? Where can my kids, where can I afford these things? And is it going to affect me in the long term? And is it going to affect my family in the long term? Yeah. And make those decisions. But that's me on my soapbox. I will give it to you guys one last time for anything that you want to say. It's an open mic for you. And then also please let them know, Sarah, I know that I had one question from PR asked, do you work the Atlanta area? I know that you said that you worked in North Atlanta area. So in this open mic forum, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I want you to tell them where they can find you, how they can find you, and again, just, what you feel about it. So
yeah.
Open.
Yeah, thank you. And just want to say congratulations to Cece. That's an amazing accomplishment of 41, almost being, or close to 41 and almost being debt free completely, including your house. I mean, that's just amazing. Yes, I do occasionally work the Atlanta market, and I would love to talk to you a little bit more about that. You can find my YouTube channel just by, searching my name up there, Sarah Maslowski. And I love talking to people and helping them connect. And if I don't feel like I'm the best agent to serve you in the area that you're looking, I can connect you with a fabulous agent that I do, trust, that can help serve you. I love being an agent, and I, think that Ian would agree that we can't do this job right now if we didn't truly love helping people and serving people and connecting them and helping them, solve problems and find their dreams. So it's been a lot of fun answering questions today. And if anyone else has any other questions, find me on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, wherever you want to find me, I'm there.
How would they find you on Instagram and Facebook?
You can search my name, Sarah Maslowski. Unfortunately, it's a great name, right? It's really hard. It's a very unique last name, so there's not too many right there out there. Right. Yeah.
But then if somebody searches it, they will find you, right? Like not another
Yes.
Sarah
Yes.
Meslab.
I will pop up. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you everybody for taking the time to just have a conversation with us. I go by Ian of Austin everywhere on the internet, including YouTube. And if you're in the market, I would say just stay diligent, continue to search for an agent an agent and a mortgage broker that can help you accomplish the goal that you need to accomplish. And if you need to reevaluate your goal, then chances are you could just adjust the distance, like Sarah had mentioned earlier. You don't necessarily have to compromise, the size of the home or something else. So there are ways to make it happen if you are if you put your mind to it and you have a little bit of savings, you can make it happen. It is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Anything worth having. It takes a little bit of a challenge. It takes a little bit of work. So I think everybody should just keep their head up and keep trying. Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
Sorry.
So again, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for doing this on Father's Day with me. I want to say thank you to all the fathers out there for staying strong and keeping it going. So you guys enjoy it. Thank you for the 440 people out there right now watching. I think at a time we got close to 500. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Before you leave, please do me a favor, hit that like button or the dislike. If you disliked it, I'm not gonna discriminate either one. So hit the like or hit the dislike. But again, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Sarah, for spending the time, hour and 20 minutes. And we had some great conversations. So I want to thank you. In true fashion of Kristina, we are going to leave. And I know that she comes back at 6:00 tonight. So I'm about to go pick her up. I got to go leave to head to New Orleans and pick her up. But I want to thank each and every one of you. And thank you guys again. So goodbye. Everybody wave. Bye.
Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.